Have you ever driven down a highway alone at night? With nothing but the fog, your headlights, and a quiet voice in your mind whispering, "What if you're not as alone as you think?" Or come home, shut the door, and felt something behind the drywall, watching. Or maybe, just maybe, you've crossed paths with someone who wasn't insane, but simply shattered. Tonight's video isn't about jump scares or movie monsters. It's about the real things that slip through the cracks of our reality, the ones that hide in plain sight, the ones we try to explain away as coincidence or madness. A silent scream on a foggy highway becomes a desperate race to stop a kidnapping. A flooded apartment reveals a hidden world crawling with eyes and whispers. And a woman broken by grief and insanity brings her blood-soaked delusion to the doorstep of a newborn child. These aren't stories meant to entertain. They're stories meant to warn you. Because sometimes, the scariest things don't come from ghost stories or nightmares, but from people. People you pass by. People living in the same building. Or someone quietly waiting behind you on the highway, watching. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and listen closely. Because if you miss the signs, you might never see the danger until it's already behind you. Story 1. The Midnight Scream on the Highway. A true kidnapping encounter. Some moments in life creep up on you quietly. No warning. No eerie music. No obvious signs. Just silence. Then suddenly something snaps and you realize you've stumbled into a nightmare with no exit ramp. This happened to me 2 years ago on a Saturday morning I'll never forget. It was just past 4 a.m. I was driving to work on the highway completely alone. Fog was hanging low, thick enough to blur the road signs and make the world outside feel like a dream. I had my windows up, heat running low, and music playing softly, something calm to keep me awake. The highway itself felt abandoned. No other cars. Just me, the hum of my engine, and the long, dim stretch of pavement ahead. Then I noticed it. A gray Honda Accord speeding up behind me in the far left lane. It was flying, had to be doing over 90. It zoomed past like a bullet. I turned my head just slightly to watch it. And that's when I saw her. A woman, pressed up against the rear window. Her face pale, her eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. She was slamming her fists against the glass like her life depended on it. I didn't have to guess. I knew. I was watching someone in the middle of a kidnapping. The driver, a man in his late 30s, dark hair, wild expression, was reaching behind him, trying to push her down. I saw him strike her. Once. Twice. As if she was just noise he needed to silence. In that moment, my mind split into two. One half screaming, "Call 911 now." The other half frozen, wondering if this was real. But instinct kicked in. I reached for my phone and dialed, hands shaking, eyes still locked on the car ahead of me. I gave the dispatcher everything I could. Mile marker, make, model, direction, all while trying to stay close enough to keep the car in view, but not so close that the driver would know I'd seen too much. But I was too late for that. The man must have realized. The brake lights on the Accord flared bright. He slammed on the brakes. Then, he swerved, cut into my lane, blocked me, almost hit me. I veered into the shoulder and slammed my brakes, barely avoiding a collision. Before I could react, his door opened. He jumped out, charging toward me. There was something in his hand, long, metallic, glinting in the fog. I didn't wait to see what it was. I threw the car into reverse, backed up fast, swerving to avoid him. My heart was pounding so loud I couldn't hear myself think. Then, like a beacon in the dark, flashing red and blue lights filled the night. 2 cruisers appeared behind me, sirens howling through the emptiness. The man tried to run, didn't get far. The officers took him down hard, dragged him off the road. The girl, the one from the window, was still in the car, curled in the back seat, shaking uncontrollably. I pulled over and waited, still trembling. One officer approached me, thanked me for the call, said I might have just saved someone's life. Eventually, they let me speak to her. Just briefly. She didn't say much. Her voice was hoarse. But I remember the way she looked at me with this raw, grateful desperation. She whispered, "Thank you. I didn't think anyone would see." That's when it really hit me, that if I hadn't looked over, if I'd brushed it off as a weird moment in the dark, she might have vanished, and no one would have ever known. After that night, I couldn't drive the same way for weeks. Every time a car passed me, I looked inside. Every time I saw someone in a back seat, I watched their eyes. And every time I saw nothing, I still wondered, what if someone's screaming and no one's watching this time? Story 2. Drenched in fear, the wall dwellers. People always think that if something is hiding in your home, you'd know, that you'd feel it. But let me tell you, some things are meant to stay just out of sight, behind the walls, in the shadows, where they wait until it's too late. It happened during one of my overnight shifts. I work in emergency services, and that night my partner and I got a call about a flood in an old apartment complex behind a busy commercial strip. Nothing seemed unusual at first. It was just marked as a standard water leak. But the landlord who made the call sounded panicked. He said water was pouring out of the hallway under one tenant's door, and he kept repeating something strange. He's locked himself in. He says there are people in the walls. We pulled up around 2:15 a.m. The building was old paint peeling, dim lights flickering above every other door. 3rd floor, Unit 312. A thin stream of water was trickling down the hallway, spreading like veins on the floor. The tenant's name was Adam, mid-20s, lived alone. The landlord gave us the spare key, but the door was dead-bolted from inside. We had to break it open. The moment we stepped in, the smell hit us: mold, mildew, and something rotting. The kitchen was flooded, ankle-deep sink, overflowing water pouring non-stop. But that wasn't the worst part. Adam was standing in the middle of the room, shoeless, soaked. His eyes wide, hollow, unfocused, locked onto nothing. His lips were moving, whispering things we couldn't quite hear. I stepped closer. He muttered, "They crawl when I sleep. They feed when I close my eyes." We asked if he was hurt. He didn't answer, just stared at the walls like they were alive. I scanned the apartment. Everything was a mess. Drawers pulled out, chairs flipped, like he'd been tearing the place apart. My partner walked toward the bedroom and stopped cold. He motioned to me, flashlight pointing toward the wall. And that's when I saw it. A thin line running vertically down the drywall. At first glance, it looked like a bad patch job. But when we looked closer, it wasn't sealed properly. There was a gap. We tapped on it. It echoed. Hollow. We exchanged a glance, then began tearing at the plaster. What we found? I still have nightmares about it. Behind the wall, crouched inside a narrow crawl space, were 3 people. 2 men and 1 woman. Pale. Thin. Covered in dirt and smeared paint. Their faces twisted in a grotesque sort of makeup, white with black circles around the eyes and mouths. They didn't scream. They didn't move. They just stared, unblinking, like they'd been waiting. We froze. I drew my taser. My partner called for backup. The 3 of them didn't resist when we pulled them out. Didn't speak. Didn't explain. They were emaciated, malnourished, but not injured. Later, when the detectives arrived, we pieced it together. The group was part of some kind of underground cult. Not religious, not organized, just twisted. They believed in wall watching, isolating themselves in tiny hidden spaces to observe the living world without being seen. They'd been targeting lonely, isolated tenants. Adam was their latest subject. They had been sneaking into his apartment at night, messing with his lights, leaving strange objects under his bed, whispering through the vents, driving him mad. The water he'd left the sink running to drown the voices. He wasn't crazy. He was being hunted. What's worse, the crawl space ran through multiple units, meaning they'd been living back there for weeks, maybe months, watching, listening. We'll never know how they got in or how long they planned to stay. All we know is this: they were real. And they were far too comfortable behind those walls. Adam was taken to a hospital. He's better now. Last I heard, he moved in with his sister and never looked back. As for me, sometimes I drive past that building during my rounds. It's been renovated now, brighter paint, new security cameras. But every time I see it, I swear I still feel eyes from somewhere just beneath the drywall. Watching, waiting. Story 3. The Laughing Woman. Madness on the streets. There are nights when the city feels alive, not in the comforting, buzzing sense, but in the way that makes you feel like something unnatural is breathing down your neck. This was one of those nights. I was on patrol with my partner. It was a little after 2 a.m. We had just finished checking a quiet neighborhood on the edge of town when the dispatch came through. Disturbance reported possible break-in, female suspect on foot acting erratically. The caller said a woman had been wandering the block, knocking on doors, muttering strange things, and laughing. But not a normal laugh. They described it as high-pitched, unhinged. A sound that didn't match any expression of joy, but something darker. Something broken. She'd been seen pacing barefoot in the middle of the road, eyes wide, grin stretched across her face, and according to the Ring doorbell footage, she kept whispering something about needing blood. We responded immediately. As we arrived on the block, everything seemed still. Too still. The kind of quiet that doesn't settle, it hovers, like the air itself is holding its breath. Then we saw her, standing under a flickering street lamp, barefoot, wearing what looked like a hospital gown, the bottom stained red, hair matted, skin pale, and in her right hand, something small and sharp glinting in the light. She wasn't looking at us. She was staring at a house window, mumbling, then chuckling to herself in short, broken bursts, like someone recalling a joke only she could understand. We stepped out of the vehicle cautiously. My partner called out, "Ma'am, are you okay?" She didn't turn. Instead, she tilted her head slowly like a puppet on a string, then finally looked at us, with the most chilling expression I've ever seen. Eyes empty, but smiling. She lifted her hand. A small razor blade, the kind used in utility knives, was pinched between her fingers, and her other hand covered in blood. Her own. There were fresh cuts running along her arms, some shallow, others deeper. We called for medical backup immediately and began trying to de-escalate. "Put the blade down," I said. "You're not in trouble. We just want to help." She started laughing again. Not loud, not dramatic, but soft, repeating, like a skipping record. Then she said it. "The child needs more. He's hungry. He needs the blood to stay alive." She pointed to the sidewalk next to her and we saw it. A small porcelain doll, its face cracked, eyes painted red, sitting perfectly upright in a little puddle of blood. She'd been talking to it, or worse, feeding it. I took a cautious step forward. She looked at me, and her face changed. The smile dropped. The laughter stopped. She suddenly looked angry, and then she lunged, fast. She screamed not words, just raw noise, and charged straight at me with the blade. I had no time to think. I shouted for her to stop, drew my weapon, and fired. 2 shots, one to the arm, one to the shoulder. She collapsed mid-sprint, landing hard on the pavement, still breathing, still muttering, but the blade clattered away. We secured her quickly and called for an ambulance, even as they lifted her onto the stretcher. She didn't stop talking. She kept whispering to the doll, cradling it like a child. "He's not done. He's still hungry." At the hospital, they confirmed she was schizophrenic, unmedicated, no family. She'd wandered off from a group facility earlier that day. The doll had belonged to her son, who had died 4 years earlier. That night haunted me not just because of what happened, but because of how close the line between reality and madness can be. She wasn't evil. She was lost, shattered by something her mind could no longer process. And yet, the house she was standing outside of it belonged to a young couple, with a newborn, a boy, and the idea that she had chosen that house, for a reason, still sends chills down my spine. 3 stories, 3 near unbelievable encounters, but each one left behind a terrifying truth, that safety is an illusion. The highway isn't always empty. The walls of your home may not be solid, and the line between sanity and madness, it's thinner than you think. The woman behind the glass, the figures living between walls, the mother whispering to a doll drenched in blood. They were all dismissed at first, overlooked, ignored, unseen. But someone looked. Someone noticed. And that made all the difference. So the next time you're driving alone and see something strange in another car, look again. When you hear a sound in your apartment wall, don't brush it off so easily. And if you ever meet someone muttering in the night, eyes wide with sorrow, be careful. Because not all horror is supernatural. Sometimes it wears a human face, and it's waiting. If these stories unsettled you, you're not alone. Leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss what's coming next. And if you've ever experienced something that made your stomach twist, your breath hitch, and your world tilt just slightly into the wrong direction, tell your story in the comments below, because your story might just be the next one we share. Stay alert, stay safe, and remember, not all screams can be heard.